There's always a man, there's always a city.
BioShock Infinite, known for its gorgeous open-air city in the sky, its fun gameplay and deep story, and not to mention the absolute hell of a development process it went through, scares me. In regard to this video though, we will only be discussing BioShock Infinite's base game. I may eventually make a video discussing the DLC, but for now we'll just be discussing Booker's time in Colombia. And before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, please hit that subscribe button and leave a comment after telling me your opinion on Infinite, because I genuinely love discussing it and would love to continue the discussion in the comments. Okay, back to it. Enjoy. Something I feel is not as heavily discussed, though, is how utterly horrifying it truly is. BioShock Infinite's horror, though, doesn't rely on jump scares or startling music. No. It relies on ideas. It relies on illusion. And as a warning, not everything we discuss here will be easy to discuss, so if you are sensitive to certain topics, please be cautious when watching. The moment you enter Colombia, you are walking through the gorgeous streets, seeing how happy the people are. Sure, you hear whispers of a group of rebels, but mostly there are children running around, games to play at the carnival, and a raffle. Look, Booker won. Oh man, I wonder what his prize will be. Oh, oh god. Or should I say, oh Comstock. The illusion shatters. The blood, well, it spills. Colombia is a dark, fractured, terrible society, one built on oppression, fear, and a church and state not separated but unified. A state built on American exceptionalism taken to its logical extreme. A state that believes their God has ordained them to eventually wipe clean the mountains of man. But Booker, he just wants to do his job. He wants to find the girl and deliver her, no matter how many of Comstock's men he has to fight and kill to do it. Because Booker, sure, he's the protagonist, but he is not a hero. Booker DeWitt is a haunted, broken man. He would be the first to tell you. He has no qualms about killing, though that isn't to say he particularly likes it, but just because he doesn't like it doesn't mean he doesn't thrive during the violence. The gameplay reflects that. It is bloody, the finishers especially. Snapping necks, exploding heads, driving a spinning blade through a chest. Elizabeth, once she joins you, has reactions sometimes during these moments where she exclaims her disgust and shock at what she is witnessing, her face afterwards showing fear of Booker. Violence is at the core of Booker. He was a soldier during the Battle of Wounded Knee. It changed him as a person. It would have changed anyone. And while Booker wants to change again, it isn't that simple. You can't just put the pieces of a broken pot back together. Sure, you can put some glue, maybe even weld it back, but it will never be the same. Deep down, Booker understands that, but, well, it's a truth he doesn't like. And clearly, he'll do anything to not have to face it. He lies to Elizabeth to get her to go with him, and once she realizes, she lashes out, understandably so. Eventually, he starts to accept that fact and they make up, though she is very honest that she sees through the lies he tells himself and sees the cracks he desperately tries to hide. But again, a broken pot sealed back together still shows the cracks. They learn to accept each other, and while the cracks are still there, they begin to fade, just a little, but not enough. Elizabeth even calls Booker out in the most brutally honest way possible before the finale, saying,
This is where you start moralizing, Booker. You forget, I know you.
but Booker wasn't moralizing. He grabs his weapon and just says, because I'm gonna do it for you. No, Booker DeWitt is not a good man. And the sad part is, he will never be. Sure, he makes the right choice at the end, but Elizabeth still has to live with the trauma endured, the trauma he arguably inflicted on her both as Comstock and Booker, from selling her to clear his debt, to torturing her as Zachary Comstock, to the violence he displayed throughout their escape. While yes, he ultimately frees her, he did so by trapping her in another cage, a cage built on trauma. And what I said by it's sad that he never will be is meant to be interpreted in more ways than one. Because the true horror of BioShock Infinite is the illusion of choice and the reality of consequences. BioShock Infinite presents an idea of the multiverse that I personally feel is the most realistic version of what the multiverse would actually be. boring, and that in and of itself scares me. The first time we see Elizabeth open a tear, she said, "They're mostly really boring. Sometimes it's tea instead of coffee, and etc." The multiverse is built on choices, and the choices we make in those other realities instead of the one you made. Except it was still you, and some things are unavoidable. There's always a lighthouse, there's always a man, always a city. Throughout Infinite, you get presented with choices between two options. You can also play the game however you like. You can use different abilities, different gear, different guns, but no matter what, it all leads to the same end. No matter what, Booker will die. And you can't change that. And that's where the horror lies. Even in a universe where Booker helped the Vox, he still died. It didn't change anything because Booker is still Booker. This realistic, and I use that loosely because obviously we don't know if a multiverse exists, concept of the multiverse horrifies me, which begs the question, if the multiverse is real, can we realistically think it would be that different? We like to think so, but in reality, would it? Sci-fi likes to portray it as, hey, in this world we expanded to the rest of the planets, or we met aliens, etc. But Infinite says, no, because we're all flawed, we'd likely end up in the same spot. We haven't changed, so big changes haven't really happened. Like my last video about Shifu and becoming obsessed with the concept of a perfect run, Infinite brings into play the idea of accepting the things you can't change. Sometimes you just can't outrun your past. Booker tries. He tries so hard, but he can't. Can you ever really escape your past? Can you truly break the cycle? Can you leave your regret behind? Are all questions BioShock Infinite asks, and the answer it provides is a bleak one. Yes, you can, but not without sacrificing everything. In Booker's case, it's his life. The climax of the game reveals that Booker is Comstock, as I alluded to earlier. When he was trying to cleanse his sins, he became reborn as Zachary Comstock. It's what I meant earlier when I said he tortures Elizabeth as both Booker and Comstock. Booker has to look in the reflection of the water and realize that he is the villain. And so he turns around and sees the versions of Elizabeth from the multiverse, and they look so tired and hurt because Booker is still Booker. He is who he is. When he tried to change, he became worse. And while he does make the heroic sacrifice, that doesn't wipe away everything he has done. To make the protagonist we have spent the last dozen hours controlling be the disease in the multiverse, it was chilling. Comstock quoting Jesus himself in his final moments, to have multiple versions of Elizabeth be the one to guide Booker through his death. It is a brutal final cutscene, not in the literally it's brutal and bloody sense, but the game ends with Booker essentially taking his own life, thus ending the cycle Booker was so intensely trying to end. All it took was his life and the infinite lifetimes of the other Bookers and Comstocks. Booker was laid to rest, as well as the hundreds of people he killed along the way. Does Booker deserve that peace? That's up to you. I do love the character of Booker. I love deeply flawed characters who realistically don't deserve the happy or even bittersweet ending. The trail of destruction they leave in their wake is hardly ever able to be repaired, in my opinion, but that's why I love them. They want to be better. It's whether or not they can choose to be better. BioShock Infinite is deeply cynical, in my interpretation of it at least. It essentially says we can't outrun human nature, though it does leave off with a bit of a possibility of a happy ending, where Booker calls out for Anna and we don't see the crib. But like on the other side of the coin, maybe the cycle still repeats. We don't know. And Ken Levine, the creator, has said himself it is meant to be open to interpretation. It is built to be interpreted differently, and it very much succeeds at this. And that's why I love it so much. I know Infinite has a bit of a divided view about it now, but personally it is my favorite out of the three because of to me personally, it is so incredibly philosophical. And that's not to say the other two aren't, they very much are. But Infinite just edges them out a little bit in my mind. I know I'm biased with Infinite though, as I personally found that while yes, BioShock 1 and 2 were excellent, I found Infinite came together in a way that resonated with me more. Maybe it is just a dark reflection of how I sometimes view the world. Maybe I just prefer the themes presented throughout a little more. There are plenty of reasons why I adore BioShock Infinite, but especially due to the themes it presents and how they utterly terrify me. The idea that we are just too flawed for another world to be different, that it still ends the same, that we can't outrun it all. It made me scared in a way that not many games have, at least in a very different way, and I really respected that. Hey everyone, post production Relic here. Just wanted to come in and say thank you so much for watching. My last two videos, each separately, are over 40 views, which is insane to me. This one, though, I think I'm the proudest of so far, just thematically, I guess. I genuinely just adore BioShock Infinite. Fun fact, the first time I played it was on Nintendo Switch. So it was nice to play it on PS5 this time around. It was pretty nice of an upgrade. And please leave me your comments discussing your views about this game. I'd be more than happy to discuss with everyone how they interpret everything. It's just a game I really enjoy debating about. And who knows, maybe you'll change my mind, making this entire video moot and pointless. That's a sad thought, but who knows? Anyway, until the next one, please again hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye.